We light our chalice flame today. As chalice flames are lit in our brother and sister congregations across the world, and as we light this flame, we will hear words from the Reverend Joy Croft. And see, the flame of truth burns bright, fed by the vision of each of us, risen from the heart of us all. Let its light shine out as our lives shine out, brightening the dark places of the world, bringing wholeness and peace.
Welcome. Welcome to this meeting house today. Welcome to the Sevenoaks Unitarian Meeting House. We gather virtually, as we have done for several months now. But we gather too this weekend physically. We have a small gathering here. Sadly, we can't invite everybody at this stage. It's small numbers, but we are starting to come back to the rhythm of a Sunday service, reopening again, welcoming others in. As this progresses, as we'll follow government guidelines, of course, and as this progresses over coming months, and here in Tenterton, in Dover, we hope to see more opening, more people being able to attend our Sunday services. But we hope too to continue online services in some way. Please do feel free to write to me, email me, message me in some way to let me know how you would feel for online or real services going forwards. Now this month, June, is celebrated here and across the world as Pride Month, previously known explicitly as Gay Pride, but is now more generally known and referred to as Pride. It's a time to remind ourselves of the importance of a free and a fair world, where all, whether straight, lesbian, gay, bisexual or transsexual, are able to live without fear, in peace and equality, where difference is acknowledged and welcomed. Now, there have been great advances in acceptance in this country in recent years, but we're not there yet. People still live in fear. Fear of exposure, perhaps. Fear of parental discovery, maybe. Things are improving there too, but a genuine worry for their safety, a genuine concern about how they might be perceived if they dare to hold hands with their partner in public. That can't be right. Pride is about helping people to overcome this. It's about ensuring a free and a fair world for all. And our service today, following our Unitarian faith of oneness and welcome, our service today looks a little deeper at the how and why we must support pride and other fights for equality, both here and the world over. Now, as an aside, this is my 300th service from this pulpit. And so it's a celebration of sorts. So let's have a pride celebration and join with me in celebrating and committing to making a world more fair.
Recognizing the importance of freedom of religion and the values we might learn from other places. Our first hymn reminds us of the hope for open hearts and open minds. With words by Peter Galbraith, all are welcome here. Our first reading is from David Blanchard. It's reflecting our theme of pride, of self-affirmation, of equality and of dignity for all. And this is Raised by Heterosexuals. I don't know where I read it. The headline, Boy Raised by Wolves. Maybe there was a picture of a hairy creature lurking in the woods. Maybe there was a dead rabbit at his feet. Maybe it was more fiction than fact. But the gist of it was that this child, raised by wolves, had become one. I don't think so. Yes, he may have learned how wolves act. Indeed, he may have lacked human language. No doubt he felt safer in the world he had been taught to survive in, even if it was not his own. But he wasn't a wolf, even if he had the wolves fooled. I think of that story every time I hear people talking about everything from the need to make gay and lesbian people into something they are not, to urging us to just be quiet about it. These people are usually the ones who reject the idea of gay pride as somehow self-indulgent. The way I figure it, I had excellent training to be a heterosexual. Some outstanding heterosexuals have shaped and guided my life. My parents are straight, my relatives are straight, my neighbours were straight, my teachers were straight, my ministers were straight, my coaches were straight. But I am not. And believe me, I've tried. I'm one of the many raised by heterosexuals. Like the boy raised by wolves, I figured out how to survive against my nature. It's all I saw, it's all I knew. Like him, I didn't have access to the language of my being. No one around me was speaking it, and I too had the wolves fooled. In fact, I even fooled myself. I thanked the heterosexuals who raised me. They did the best they could with what they had to work with, but they can stop trying now. That's what gay pride is all about. It's a kind of crash course in survival techniques for those of us whose basic training in life no longer works. No one taught us what we would need to know when we were young. We must teach each other to trust the deep instincts and true impulses of our souls. When enough of us have done that, perhaps the world will be safer for the boys and the girls, like me, who must find their way home by another way. The words of David Blanchard. Let us come together in a time of prayer. We are products and partakers of the divine, whether we like it or not, as are all things that live, all things that exist. With our minds, we explore the mystery that is divine, seeking light in darkness and darkness in light. As our souls seek communion with each other in love and fellowship, so they seek and find the divine. We cannot see the divine face to face, yet we encounter the divine all the time and everywhere. If we have eyes to see and ears to hear, senses to connect with what is around us, and spirits to reflect. The divine is the great mystery we can never really know. and yet the divine is no mystery at all. May we have the clarity and the humility to realize it. Eternal Spirit, Mother, Father, ever present if only we have eyes to see, we stand in awe in the presence of the universe. In its proper time, may the mystery unfurl before us. Though fettered by our material desires, may the depths of the Spirit uphold and guide us. May the great gifts of the earth sustain us. May the universe forgive our faults and our follies, and may we in equal measure be forgiving. May we ever turn our eyes toward the light to dispel the darkness which would engulf us. We give thanks for the bounty of the universe, which abounds with power and glory beyond our greatest imaginings. If you wish to, I welcome you to join with me in the last prayer, following the words on your screens. Eternal Spirit, we meet together that our lives may be transformed. May our misdeeds be washed from us, and may we be cleansed of our wayward deeds and thoughts. Each of us knows in our hearts we are not perfect. We've let ourselves down. We seek to make amends. May we have truth in our inner souls, and may we recognize the joys of living lives in love. May we seek the presence of the divine to restore us. Heal us, O Spirit. Make us anew. Amen. Our second reading is by Richard S. Gilbert, a retired Unitarian Universalist minister. This is a reflection on our differences and our similarities, our individual and our collective beings. This is, we are all more human than otherwise. The human race is a vast rainbow, white, black, red, yellow, and brown bursting into view. Yet for all, blood is red, the sky is blue, the earth brown, the night dark. In size and shape we are a varied pattern of tall and short, slim and stout, elegant and plain. Yet for all there are fingers to touch, hearts to break, eyes to cry, ears to hear, mouths to speak. In tongue, we are a Tower of Babel, a great jumble of voices grasping for words, groping for ways to say love, peace, pity, and hope. Faiths compete, claiming the one way. Saviours abound, pointing to salvation. Not all can be right, not one. We are united only by our urge to search. Boundaries divide us, lines drawn to mark our diversity, maps charted to separate the human race from itself. Yet a mother's grief, a father's love, a child's happy cry, a musician's sound, an artist's stroke batter the boundaries and shatter the walls. Strength and weakness, Arrogance and humility, confidence and fear live together in each one, reminding us that we share a common humanity. We are all more human than otherwise. The words of Richard S. Gilbert. Our second hymn is Our Kindred Fellowships, a hymn that urges us to build a church that is free, a freedom to follow truth and love. Our Kindred Fellowships. The words will be on your screen.
There was a wedding last week. Not here, but as I'm sure you will have seen, the Prime Minister was married to his fiancée in the Roman Catholic Westminster Cathedral. There was much discussion in the papers as to how or why the Catholic Church had allowed the wedding. As a divorcee, it seemed the Prime Minister was being granted permission when others have not been. Was it against Roman Catholic rules? Perhaps they didn't think his previous marriages counted. Who knows? What we do know is that there is no uncertainty on whether the Catholic Church would marry same-sex couples. It won't. Nor will the Church of England, nor many other Christian denominations, or other faith authorities, including Islam, Sikhism. But what is interesting, however, is that these lines are drawn by religious authorities. Many people with many different faiths are upset that such restrictions are in place. They see progressive faith, as many of different faiths see their faith. Progressive faith is one that adapts and recognises a changing society, supporting the aims of a world where we treat each other with respect, where we love our neighbours as ourselves, with love, where we recognise individuals' rights to follow their hearts, providing no harm is done. Now, marriage is a wonderful thing, and as Unitarians, we've supported the successful national campaign to allow marriage to be an option too for partners of the same sex. Now, it's now enshrined in law. Many Unitarian churches are registered for same-sex weddings. Here in Sevenoaks we are. I've conducted several weddings across Kent. The last one's in Maidstone. Wonderful time in December, last day before lockdown. And in this country at least, couples in love, no matter their gender, are free to marry and to have the same rights as any other person. Although many, of course, will have to do this in a civil ceremony, having been excluded by their religious leaders. But this move to legislate for same-sex marriage is an important step on the recognition of sexuality as being a personal choice, of accepting, of welcoming, of affirming and standing in support of equality and respect of diversity. Yet although there is progress here in the UK and many other parts of the world, there is still not global acceptance of this. In this country, where same-sex marriage is now accepted and millions of people are prepared to be open with friends, family, and anyone at all about their true, deep nature, it's sobering to think that homosexuality remains illegal in over 130 countries, is still punishable by death in 7 countries. For each of us here, each of us watching, who may know, be related to, be, or good friends with a gay person, you might be expected to report your friend's sexuality to the police in those countries, or to be considered as an accomplice to a supposed crime if you didn't. It's terrifying, really. Now, in our second reading today, that piece by Richard S. Gilbert, we were reminded that we are all, in his words, more human than otherwise. As he said, the human race is a vast rainbow bursting into view. In size and shape, we are a varied pattern of tall and short, slim and stout. Boundaries divide us, lines drawn to mark our diversity, yet we share a common humanity. We are all more human than otherwise. And this, surely, is a very Unitarian concept. We are a movement that has always believed in the oneness of God, of the universe, of the all that is, and all that is within. We are, each of us, different. As Unitarians, we recognise the benefits of a diverse world, of the value of difference, the possibilities that come from it. Now, I cannot, no matter how hard I try, change the prejudices of the world overnight and the laws of foreign or even of this country's, but that does not stop me from being responsible for doing all I can to put things right, to change my actions, to change opinions, to make a world more fair. I can try to remind others that there are real people, real flesh and blood, real emotions under terrible strain in all these stories. And it's, of course, our reaction to the world and its events that define who we are as individuals, who we are as people of faith. Many consider that we're all part of this great world. I certainly do. We are one with its hopes, its majesty, its awesomeness. And we are one with its problems, its tragedies, great and small. We are part of the world's pain as well as its celebration. This is the great interdependent web of life to which we belong, and we owe it the courtesy of treating all of its parts with love, light, and understanding. Now, Unitarians have a long history of recognising the importance and value of all humankind. Now, in Britain, James Martineau, the great Victorian Unitarian theologian, developed the concept that everyone was an incarnation of God. Just as Jesus was heralded as the Son of God, Martineau saw divinity in every human soul, not just one. Martineau considered that God is present in us through our conscience. Now, Martineau did indeed believe in a father figure God, but no matter how you reconcile the great divine mystery in your theology, the idea that Martineau sends is a compelling one. Because what he really was saying is that if God is present within each and every one of us, then we are all connected. And any slight against another human being is a slight not just against them, but a slight against God. Or to take the cycle to its full stretch, it's a slight against ourselves. So to overlook somebody, to ignore somebody, to depersonalize them, to condemn them, is in fact to hurt ourselves. Similarly, to treat others with respect, to seek to understand people as people, rather than commodities or problems or issues to overcome. No, to treat someone with respect is to treat all with respect, to respect ourselves through our actions. Now, as Unitarians, we are justly proud of our belief in community, in our support for the less fortunate, for our insistence of the divinity in all, from Martineau's piece there, not just in our friends. And the General Baptists, the founders of this congregation, were the same. For them, all people were to be saved by God, not just the General Baptists. It's one of the key reasons they were shunned by more orthodox movements. But it was this tradition of unconditional love and understanding for all people to respect. But even then, it wasn't really an unusual position in faith. Even St. Paul, who I pretend to dislike, but have started to realise had a few good words of wisdom within him. Even Paul was clear, notably in his letter to the Romans, that we are all one body, that we are all individually members of one another. Whilst we all have different skills, we're all part of the same. When working together, we are truly whole. And he went on, love one another with mutual affection, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep, live in harmony with one another. And that great phrase he had, that do not be haughty. It's a translation, but he obviously said something similar. Paul is clear in this letter that it's love alone that curbs self-assertion, makes unity possible. Love for one another is the only true commandment. For me, this is the kind of theology I crave. Love for one another is the only commandment. Every action I might take, every letter I might write, every decision is based in love for my fellow humans. Is it? I try to make it so. Am I looking to unite in fellowship or divide and mistrust? Love is the only way. Paul's words, well, these ones only, are words that Unitarians can take to heart. A guide to living in harmony with one another. So let us celebrate being human. Let us celebrate that we are part of this gigantic web of existence, a web that some might even call God. Let us continue the path of our great Unitarian predecessors, Martineau amongst them. Let us praise humanity in all its forms. Not one of us are the same. Let's celebrate rather than fear it. Remember that each of us has our own feelings, our own hurt, our own joys. And all of these are part of the world in which we are blessed to live. We are all human, and that's what makes this life worth living. This month of Pride is a reminder to support friends, colleagues, strangers in their struggle for a fair world where they are accepted, where they are welcomed, where they are part of the whole. For a world where all are free to declare their love, their lives, their very being in public without prejudice, criticism, or fear. As we celebrate weddings and celebrations of couples across the world, let us also take time to remember those who are oppressed simply because of who they are. And let us reflect on how we might take forward our hopes for a more loving, more tolerant, more accepting, more welcoming, more peaceful world. May we learn to live with each other and for each other. In the name of love. Let us come together in a time of stillness and of quiet. As we settle our bodies, perhaps closing our eyes, focusing on our breath. I shall speak some words. We shall come together in stillness and quiet. That stillness will be broken with music to continue our reflections. Some words from Martin Luther King. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be.
Some closing words. As we extinguish this flame, may its memory spark in each of us recollection of our connection and commitment to this living tradition and to each other. May there be peace and love amongst us all, now and forever. Amen.